Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I am the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor Keith Raynor. And Keith, the club season is upon us. It's been a weird and winding road. I think it's going to continue to be a weird and winding road as we get into the season. But the Pro Elite Challenge at Colorado Cup is happening this weekend. And we're back. I mean, this is kind of the first, official tournament back since COVID. I mean, we had Richmond Cup. There's been a couple of things here and there. And obviously we've had the AUDL, but in terms of USA Ultimate competition, this kicks us off. How are you feeling about things, Keith?
I'm excited to see Ultimate again. I mean, it's been fun watching AUDL. It was fun watching the Richmond Cup footage. And this will be something of a similar experience, but even just seeing people talking on Twitter about scores, we've barely seen that at all. We may not even get that in full-fledged force this weekend, given the strange state of the tournament, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But it is good to be looking at actual lists of players that will, in theory, be competing together for the most part, come national championships.
Really quickly, just want to plug the finals of the Richmond Cup are going to be premiering on Ultiworld's YouTube channel on next Thursday. That is July 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So definitely tune in for that. $7,500 prize on the line, and should be a fun one. So
for the teams in the not for you watching. Don't get excited.
Unfortunately. We'll have to see if we can pull together the funds for some kind of pick'em contest. I don't know about 7,500, but hope you'll tune in again. That's Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, premiering on our YouTube channel. So get your popcorn ready, get your friends together, and enjoy the show. So let's get into this Pro Elite Challenge. We're going to be talking with Sockeye's Trent Dillon in a little bit, as Sockeye looks to begin their title defense this weekend at the Pro Elite Challenge. There's 4 top-level men's teams. You've got Sockeye, Pony, Condors, and Johnny Bravo. And then a lot of lower-level teams compared to a typical Pro Elite Challenge, because just as a reminder, if you're kind of tuning in, catching up with what's going on in the club world, there are no requirements for teams this year to attend any particular events. There aren't going to be rankings this year. Everybody has to start at sectionals. So it's kind of pick your own adventure when it comes to the club season. So some teams are saying, hey, let's go play. We want to do a full season. Other teams are saying, we're going to sit it out until sectionals. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we get further into the season. But today I kind of want to focus on PEC. Why don't we start in the men's division, Keith? Sockeye coming off the title in 2019. Pony will be there coming off the title in 2018. And then kind of a semifinals thumping at the hands of Machine in the 2019 national championships. Those are your top 2 seeds. Who do you feel like's got the early edge here? And what are you expecting to see from these teams to start the year?
This year, as much as any, it's always difficult going into the Pro Elite Challenge to really assess. But this year, as much as any, I think it's difficult because of the fluidity of rosters, the uncertainty with where players are from a training and health standpoint, how much teams have gotten together to really talk about things. And, maybe Sockeye, they're coming off a title, but it might not even feel like that to them, given that we've had a two season gap since they have won the title from a time standpoint. But looking at the rosters, thinking about the teams, to me, I don't know why you can't put Sockeye as the favorite here. Lots of continuity. Maybe you go into this tournament and if you're really picking apart the rosters and you see that there's no Dylan Freechild on Sockeye's roster for this tournament. I believe he is playing with them this season, but not on the tournament roster. It's kind of a big loss. It's a pretty good player. I don't know if you've heard about the guy. So maybe that's enough to shift the balance of power towards Pony, who has a pretty full complement of their top end players. So maybe I'm speaking too soon, but I'm going to stick with the easy layup here as far as like taking the favorite to be the best team.
Yeah, and we'll ask Trent about this, but it's going to be interesting. You know, typically we see teams kind of have a little bit of a championship hangover, to be honest. We haven't had back-to-back winners in the men's division for over a decade. And, you know, as good as Pony looked in 2018, they never really found the rhythm in 2019. They were clearly a good team, but, you know, is Sockeye going to suffer from a similar situation? I mean, most of their core key players are back this year. And you never really know what it's going to look like, you know, in the first tournament of the year, especially with some of the top players not there, as you noted. I'm going to take Pony. I mean, I'm not going to bury the lead here. I think Pony's going to win this tournament. I think the hunger is back for them. I mean, you think about the way that they've treated the offseason, getting a lot more strict about having players attend all practices and tournaments. It means that they don't have the same kind of crossover with the New York Empire and the AUDL. We've talked about that on the show. And, you know, when you look down their roster, I mean, there's a lot to like. Obviously, you've got, you know, Jimmy Mickle, you've got Grant Lindsley, you know, Sam Little, who I think is going to have a big season for them. They also had some.
You've always been such a Sam Little
big time. I mean, they should never have taken him off the O-line. What were they doing? John Randolph joins this team. I'm excited to see what he can do for them. And so, you know, Chris Kocher, I can't not mention him. I love this roster. I think that this team also just has the fire back in their eyes in a way that I don't think that they really did in 2019. And for me, it starts and stops with Jimmy Mickle. At the end of the day, he was amazing in 2018. He was not amazing in 2019. Whether that's because of his own game or if that's because of team chemistry issues or whatever the case may be, I don't know. But I think if we see Jimmy get back to 2018 form, Pony's going to be a really tough team to stop this year.
I'm shocked to hear you talk about all the talented players on Pony and not talk about Michael Bartell, Emory alum. Sorry, I just had to get the plug.
I was like, where is he going with this?
Or the fact that they have John Randolph, so now they have all Pony secrets. You know, they've got the inside scoop. This is a smooth chess move here to get advantage on the board. I think I'm a little worried maybe about like the kind of glue pieces that I feel like have been where Pony, you know, where they've been the most successful is through those players. You know, some of those players are here. Your Clark Kofers, your Ben Katz, your Tyler Haskells, but I'm a little worried that some of those players are missing. Again, I'm not putting too much stock into anything that happens in this tournament. I mean, how often do we see the team that's the best at the end of the season look like the best at Colorado Cup? Like, I just don't feel like that's really the tenor of how teams approach the tournament. So I'm not going to put too much stock in anybody's results. I'm sure if you asked all of these teams, you're probably going to get a lot of like, we're really focused on ourselves. You know, we're worried about trying to make ourselves the best that we can be right now and like figure out the kinks. So, you know, if you're looking for continuity, you're probably going to get the most of it with Condors. Yes. And so, you know, maybe they're going to overperform. I don't know. Maybe Condors is going to come out here and look really good. And then we get to spend some time hyping them up, push them up power rankings. I love that. But your argument for Pony is completely sound. I can't argue against it.
Let's talk about it for a second. I think the big question mark for Pony is what's going to happen on the defensive side of the disc. They lose a lot of key D players. Jeff Babbitt, not on the roster this year. Mike Dross, not on the roster this year. Conrad Schloer is gone. Josue Loro is gone. These are players that were really key pieces for them. And, you know, the defense wasn't quite what it was in 2018. The following season, they had a little bit of trouble, and we talked about it a bunch on the show. You know, do they have the go out there and play hard-nosed matchup defense and take the disc away from you? We didn't really see that much in 2019, and now they lose a bunch of guys who are really good at doing that. And if you remember back to nationals,
they're kind of like tip of the spear D-line
Totally.
players.
And you remember back to Nationals, I mean, the only reason that they even made it to the semifinals past Rhino was because of Jeff Babbitt. And he's gone. I mean, we're talking about one of the clear best defensive players in the country no longer on the team. So what is that going to mean for what the defense looks like for Pony? That's going to be something to look for this weekend. You know, are they able to get takeaways against the great offenses that they're going to play? Because really all three of the other elite teams at this tournament, Bravo and Condors and Sockeye, have excellent offensive lines. Like Bravo's O should be great this year. You know, they pick up Jay Frood, and that's adding to a mix of players that was already very good. And of course, we've seen what Sockeye's offense can do. They were the best offense in 2019. And, you know, without Freechild there this weekend, I do think that definitely takes them down a peg. I mean, he really does make that much of a difference. But I don't have real concerns about what they'll be able to do offensively. And so that's going to be something to follow along. You know, I think we probably have to make our preseason, like, way too early championship picks today, Keith, before we sign off the show.
Whoa.
So
nobody told me that.
We're going to get to that in our final segment. And there are more. This is the most too early it's ever been, because we don't even really know what rosters look like in the mixed and women's division right now. We know a little bit more about the top teams in the men's division, but still, like, it feels like a weird season in a number of ways. But we're going to have to lay them down. I mean, we got to make some picks.
I'm betting the house minimum on any of these picks.
I'm curious to see what Bravo looks like too. I mean, Condors feels like kind of the same team. They lose a couple pieces, they pick up a couple pieces. They still have the key guys who've stirred the drink for them: Travis Dunn, Goose Helton. You know, I think they're still a Nationals team. I don't know that they're going to really do much more than make Nationals, but this has been an elite offensive unit for a few years now, and I'm excited to see what they look like, especially considering that a lot of them play together in the AUDL and have had some time to get some run, more so than we've seen.
Condors to me, you know, their paths to breaking through are, one, getting some sort of defensive scheme that makes a lot of sense for them and helps them stay competitive, because we do think that their offense should be at the level. And two, the development of their young players. You know, if we see Calvin Brown and KJ Koo take the leap, it's going to open up a lot of new avenues for them to compete in the quarterfinals and beyond the Nationals.
And 2 years is a long time. You know, players got better just because they got older and they lifted weights. We've seen it in the AUDL. Some of the most exciting players this season in the AUDL are the 22-year-olds, not the 28-year-olds who were great 2 years ago. So what's that going to look like as it plays out this year? No women's division at the Pro Elite Challenge, which we've discussed. Really, the women's division isn't going to get started in a serious way until mid to late August, it seems. Maybe things will change before then, but it doesn't look like the U.S. Open is going to have a women's division. The SFI East women's division has also been canceled. So what's that going to mean for that division? Well, we're kind of waiting to see. Teams are still in the tryout process in many cases. We will get a look at that division a little bit later, but we do have a competitive mixed division this weekend at PEC. So let's turn our attention there, Keith. This is not, you know, we don't have two super elite teams like we do in the men's division. And I think there was just a drop. Yeah, we had a team dropped in the mixed division very late, I think yesterday. So your top four seeds at this tournament are Shame out of Fort Collins, Columbus Cocktails, Montana Moondog, and Raleigh Durham Toro. So interesting mix of teams. A little bit of a deeper field as well than in the men's division. Shame, not always a team that cares too much about the regular season, Keith, but they still might be the most talented team here.
It's true, but you know, there are certainly some notable absences from their roster. Two of their highest usage players in their incredible run in 2019 were Nick Lance and Owen Westbrook. And I think they're probably really going to miss those players moving forward. There certainly is plenty of talent here and plenty of experience, certainly even more so now that they've kind of taken that journey. That they have Casey Anderson, they have the big play capabilities of Nick Snuska and like Jade McLaughlin, Joe Anderson. There's definitely talent here. Ashley Daly Morgan, who's a veteran but still very fast. But I'm a little worried about the fact that they've lost some of those key O-line drivers for shame.
Who do you think is the favorite then?
I am sure I am just overly influenced from having watched them when they have Alan Laviolette and Ann Worth on the team, but Toro's the team that's gotten the reps already, and that to me means a lot. Grayson Sanner looked fantastic for them. Emma Peasley, very impressive in their performance at Richmond Cup. So, I think that they can weather the storm of losing those players and adding in some other really talented players that, don't have quite the cachet, but could be pretty nice complementary players around the talent that they have. So I think those extra reps are really going to help. And I think Grayson Sanner and Lyra Olsen is another one. They're probably going to be torching a lot of people.
I'm very curious to see how this tournament shakes out in the mixed division, because I think like any of the top 6 seeds could win the tournament. I agree. Love Tractor is sitting down there at 6. I mean, Love Tractor's been a great regular season team that seems to come up short at regionals, and that's tough. But like this roster is still quite good. I don't, Hallie Dunham joining the team. It's a nice pickup. Henry Conker playing Love Tractor this year, coming over from Bravo. So how?
But when I ask you about Love Tractor, if I'm like, hey, what do you think of Love Tractor? What's the first thing you think of when you think of Love Tractor?
Not on the roster this weekend.
No Jack McShane, no Dina Slattery. I think Conker will probably step into maybe the McShane-esque role, but I'm a little skeptical.
Well, you got Loxa, Jordan Kerr on the roster.
That's spicy.
And this team was pretty good. Abby Abramovich also joining the team. I think Loxa is going to nationals this year. It probably depends. I don't know. It's tough. We already know how many bids that they have up there in the Northwest, and it's Loxa. I always get this wrong, and I'm going to remember for the rest of the season. They literally have it in their notes on their roster page.
It says Loxa. Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to say this hard saw. Loxa. Maybe it is Loxa. That's what it says. I'm going to go with Loxa until I'm told otherwise.
They lost Brad Hauser though, right? If I'm seeing that right? I think
he's playing with Mixtape this year.
That's huge.
It is huge. It's hard to get a sense, but I think like you have both the combination of player movement, but then also like who's showing up for this particular tournament that makes things interesting. Moondog going to be good again. Columbus Cocktails has some notable players on the roster for this weekend specifically. Sadie Jezierski is playing with them. I don't believe she's going to be playing with them for the entirety of the year, but she's there. Lots of other players from the Ohio area, the Agami brothers, Emily Barrett, Cara Sieber. So they're going to be tough. I honestly think that like 1-6, anybody could win this tournament. And like Lotus, all the way down there at the 9 seed, looks pretty good. Chris Mazer et al., Kelly Iwamoto. Arizona mixed. They're the 15th. They're the bottom seed of this tournament, and they, I promise you, will not finish in last place. It's like lots of the best players from Arizona.
And maybe even otherwise, maybe outside of Arizona, I don't know. And then just a little extra spice for you. I Kansas City United. I'm not expecting them to win the tournament, but I noticed Cami Groom's playing with them this weekend.
Hello,
it's got to be worth a couple W's.
Hello. Seriously, what's her wins above replacement in the mixed division?
Got to be one of the highest you could I still think it's a pretty low number because an entire win share is huge. I mean, like even goals. Like if you had if you were worth 3 goals, you'd be worth so much.
She's worth 2 goals, I think.
That feels like a lot. Like you're talking about like ceiling players, but that's who we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about literally one of the best players
player
on the face
of the year in the women's division who's going to go out there and just destroy people.
So here we go for Kansas City mixed.
Yeah, and like, what's that going to mean for where she plays later this year? That's the other thing. These rosters aren't necessarily indicative of what you're going to see later in the season when we come to the series time. So that adds kind of like a fun mix of everything, but it increases the competitiveness of the tournament, which is fun. So
I wonder if there's any other bombs on these other rosters that I haven't even looked at. And like, I'll flip one open and it's like,
almost certainly.
Angela Zhu's playing with this team.
Almost certainly. That's a great time of year to go to Colorado. The weather looks like it's going to be beautiful. We are going to be filming games. I've had some questions about that. We are going to be filming games at the tournament. No live stream. Unfortunately, we can't. The field does not allow for elevated camera positions. We can't set up a lift or a scaffold or anything in order to get a high angle camera view. So it kind of takes streaming out of the question. I expect we will be streaming later this regular season, but look for games on the Ultiworld subscription package. You can check out the whole subscription options at ultiworld.com/subscribe. There'll also be some games out on the USA Ultimate YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for the footage next week as we come out of this tournament. Keith, you want to make your pick for the PEC right now in the mixed division?
Yeah. I think I'm sticking with Toro.
Okay.
I'm gonna ride with Toro. I'll take the known quantity. And I was pretty impressed.
I'm taking Love Tractor. The Denver teams always outperform at Colorado Cup every single year.
It's that home field
Bravo
elevation.
Might win
baby.
the men's division. I just like, they've been playing at home. Colorado's been a little more open in terms of ultimate than a lot of other places. Like, they've been playing for longer. That, there was
this is like insider
mini
right
tournaments happening last fall. So how much that matters is hard to say, but I wouldn't be surprised to see outperformance from those teams yet again. So give me Love Tractor. And in the men's division, I'm going to go ahead and stick with Pony. You taking Sockeye?
You may have swayed me to Pony here. Can we not pick the same thing though? Seems like bad radio.
Make your pick.
I think you swayed me to Pony.
Okay, Pony it is. So we both take Pony. I've got Love Tractor. Keith has Toro. And again, no women's division this weekend at PC. We're going to talk now with Trent Dillon from Seattle Sockeye about this weekend and the title defense and how he's doing coming out of the pandemic and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's Deep Look. Joining us now on Deep Look is 2019 national champion with Seattle Sockeye, Trent Dillon. Trent, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Keith and Charlie.
Thanks for joining us. We've got the start of the club season upon us, and it's all kicking off at the Pro Elite Challenge at Colorado Cup coming up this weekend. So, first and foremost, how are you feeling about the start of the season? Are you excited to get back out there after this long hiatus?
Yeah, definitely feeling excited. It's been a long time. It's a spring filled with tryouts and training. So definitely kind of culminating in this first opportunity to go back and play a tournament.
How unusual has the sort of lead up to this been for Sockeye? How compressed was your timeline, or have you all been in communication and kind of figuring things out for an extended period through the quarantine?
I would say it hasn't felt compressed. If anything, it's felt like kind of like an elongated off season. Last summer and in the off season, we've been working on kind of like some strategic planning related to social justice and racial justice. And that's been a really helpful thing for us to sink our teeth into in this last year. I think being able to continue to connect as a team and work on something as a team, whether it's, over Zoom or over, other types of collaborative spaces, has been useful for us from a community building standpoint.
I'm trying to remember now. Sockeye announced some significant amount of money donated to various charitable organizations. Was it $50,000? Can you remind me what all you've done?
Our financial redistribution goal for anti-racist organizations and kind of individuals was $30,000, and we achieved that by the end of 2020. So yeah, that was one part of the goal, was financial redistribution. But in addition to that, we were looking to restructure some elements of Sockeye to become more accessible and equitable. And while we're definitely proud of the, I think, financial contributions, I think the thing that has required more time, investment, discussion, collaboration has been, how do we make Sockeye more accessible and equitable? Yeah.
I'm kind of curious if you can share what you came up with. Like what kind of solutions did you find to that problem that I think a lot of teams are exploring?
Yeah. So I'm just checking. Yeah, it's pinned on our Twitter is our kind of like announcement. So I don't want to butcher it. So if anyone wants more information, please head there. But I think we decided on 5 kind of strategic focus areas. I think we're interested in like developing further connections with our alumni. There's so many great resources and experiences within our alumni network. We want to do more to connect with them. Financial accessibility is a big thing. We're working on kind of an equitable due structure, a sliding scale. We're increasing like our fundraising avenues, and we're starting to redistribute our fundraising dollars more equitably to the people who need them. We're continuing self-education that we did within the last year about topics of systems of oppression, white supremacy, toxic masculinity. These are things that are, have kind of like lived in our team and that we need to kind of like root out and identify. In addition to that, we're working on kind of more substantial like community building, community development, getting to know more local players, more youth players, specifically players of color in the South End here in Seattle. And there's one more thing that we've been focusing on that is skipping my mind, so I'll just leave it at those 4. But yeah, things like that. How do we lower the barriers to access? How do we kind of like become a community that's more aware of our privileges or things that we're kind of working on?
You grew up in a city where the ultimate community is a little bit smaller, I think, than in Seattle, and you maybe felt having more of that like top to bottom, not even just because of where you grew up in Pittsburgh, but also because the community was just smaller and more and different, 20 years ago than it is today. Have you felt that things are a little bit more stratified in Seattle? Given that there's just like so much ultimate happening. I mean, at least from my perspective, following along with how things have trended over time, at least here in New York City, elite club players don't play league much. There's less connectivity between the top elite teams and kind of everybody else compared to, I grew up in Albuquerque and like everybody played summer league all together, from the very best players in the city all the way down to total beginners. So I'm curious just like for what that's been like for you, and if maybe that's something that Sockeye been thinking about.
Yeah, so I think your assumption is right. I actually grew up in Philly, so I'm familiar with the Philly ultimate scene, and you're right. Like everyone kind of plays summer league or winter league, and you really get to know people through that. I will say though that here in Seattle, although we don't have that like kind of like adult summer league situation, coaching is there's an abundance of coaching opportunities, and there's an abundance of coaches. So right off the bat, on our roster, we have multiple connections to youth players and age up or kind of whatever have you. So we've been focusing on leveraging those connections to develop, I think, a better pipeline and relationship with the youth scene here.
I knew you grew up in Philly, and I said Pittsburgh, and I'm knocking off the rust just like everybody else.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Club season. So,
yeah,
do you think it's going to be easier or harder for Sockeye to try to defend the title, given that we've had a year and a half away?
It's going to be challenging no matter what. It's hard to say whether it'll be easier or harder. I will say that I feel like I'm proud of what the team has done within the last year, and I'm proud of the way we've entered this season. I think we're coming in on a strong foot. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, like or any easier. And I think we're ready for that, and we're ready for the adversity, and it's all about how we respond to it. And that was the thing that got us through in 2019. It was like we were comfortable with uncertainty, we were comfortable with adversity, and when that adversity hit, we knew that was something that we were prepared for. So I think we're all excited to get another taste of that adversity, and to see and show and feel that feeling that, yeah, we're a resilient team. We can work through challenges.
What's the feeling going into a Pro League challenge that maybe is a little bit different than your typical season opening tournament? You have a field where you have a few national levels teams, and then a pretty mixed bag after that with teams that haven't reached that level yet. What's the sense going into the tournament for Sockeye and for yourself?
Keith is being very generous.
It's just excitement. It's just, we like playing Ultimate. We're Ultimate players, I'm 28, I don't have that many years left to play in the sport in me, so I'm just excited. I think that, as a strong team, you don't want to put too much thought into the opponent you're playing. You just want to go out and play to the level that you can play. So, I think that our captains or our leadership had some say with the tournament director or with USA Ultimate about setting up a power pool format, which seems pretty cool. But yeah, I as a player, I'm not too involved in those conversations. I'm just excited to get back out there, cleat up, have that early morning dew, all that stuff missed it a ton.
How much playing have you been doing over the last, I don't know, however many months?
So I went, I guess, Worlds tryouts in February 2020 to Sockeye tryouts in May 2021 without playing any sevens. Did a little bit of throwing, I don't think I even did mini once or twice, but I was working out pretty consistently. I wanted to keep moving. I wanted to put my body through something that felt like a season, and I tried to simulate that on my own. But yeah, it had been a long time up until May. And then since then, it's been pretty much every weekend because we've had tryouts and practice and whatnot. So definitely feeling like I'm back on the swing now. But for a while, it was like, oh, what's this going to feel like? A little bit of nervousness. But it's been, for me personally, it's been good.
Do you feel any extra pressure, or do you sense any extra pressure from the team and having to defend the title? Or does it feel like a relief? Like, okay, we reached the mountaintop, like we got there. So now it's not as much of like, we have to do this to be successful.
That's a good question. I've actually been listening to the Book of Basketball 2.0 a bit over the last 2 years, because they talk about the challenges of repeating. And I don't know if you heard the disease of more from Steve Kerr and the secret of basketball, things like that. It really interesting episodes if people want to listen to it. It's the first 2 episodes on the Book of Basketball 2.0. And I feel like our team, it isn't that kind of mountaintop feeling, doesn't really feel like it's there. I feel like for so long, since I've joined the team, we've known that we're capable of winning a national championship. Even though we weren't winning, we've always known. There's no oh, now we know that we can do it. I think we've always known, we know it's difficult, and we want to do it as many times as we can while we're still able to play. So I think that heading into this season, at least the sense that I get is that we still have that same hunger, that same desire. And we're excited to get after it.
Who do you see as your biggest competition this year?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, it could be anyone, like you look at 2017, it was, Florida United and Pony and Machine. You look at 2016, it was almost Dig, I think that for me, I've learned too many times in my career that you can't really pick who it's going to be. If anything, it's yourself, it's your own team. So, but in terms of other teams that I think are going to be great, I mean, Ring of Fire is going to be awesome. Pony's going to be awesome. Machine's probably going to be great. Right. I think Rhino might be a really good team. I was down in Portland talking to some of those guys. It seems like they've got a good thing going on. So it's going to come from anywhere. And really excited for that.
Don't you got to keep that a secret that you can't really pick who's going to be good, because that's kind of the business model here. So don't let that out. We got to keep that on the low. I'm looking at the Sockeye roster going into this Pro League Challenge, and there are some names I really don't recognize, which would be a shock if it, I follow the division pretty closely. I know most of the players coming up. I know that this year there's a little more flexibility with rosters. We're seeing people who can kind of bounce back and forth or get in extra reps. How has that helped Sockeye, and how has that changed how your roster's made up for this tournament and potentially in other tournaments through the season?
Yeah, so I think the combination of the roster flexibility and also trying to make Sockeye more accessible has led to us creating this like new group of players that we're calling developmental players, who are basically coming to practices, I think, up through the regular season, but there might be some flexibility with that. And yeah, these are basically like a bunch of like local high school players who we think see a lot of potential in, who bring a lot of different things to the table, whether it's athleticism or a great mental game, or really strong skills. And we're fortunate enough to bring a few of them to Co-Cup. So I think you mentioned Zeppelin Ronig. Zeppelin's one that's going to be a Colorado Cup, who's a developmental player. There's also Kai Durvasula. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Jonas Golden. So I think that that's something that I'm really excited about this year. I think that was a great call by our captains to kind of like add a space, add an additional opportunity for players to be a part of the team and feel what it feels like to be with us at practice, without necessarily constraining what we're trying to do, either from like a developmental or a rostering standpoint in the series.
Who, you also have some new players to Sockeye this year who are on the sort of a full official roster. Who are you most excited to be playing with that's new to the team? And maybe that goes along with like who's been most impressive so far in practices and tryouts.
Oof. Yeah. I mean, we've had a ton of new additions, especially like younger players. I think that, I've been reflecting on how in 2019, like Xander and I were the youngest players on our offensive line, which feels crazy because I don't feel that young. But we've added in, like Mac, Hecht. We've added in Noah Kuhlman. We've added in Stan Birdsong. I'm sure I'm missing some people, but adding in some of those younger players, for me, just having them around just really, I feel like brings out the best in me when I feel like I have to be a little bit more of an example, I guess. So I'm really excited to play with those three guys. And in general, yeah, Jack Brown's another one, younger guy coming in. They fire me up seeing that young energy and passion, and trying to do what I can to help tell them what I've learned from playing on this team. Really, I feel like is exciting to me. So those are some players I'm excited to play with most.
It's crazy how fast it happens. Huh? Like one day you're the young kid getting mentored, and people are like, "Oh, who's this kid at the fields?" And now you're like thinking about taking guys under your wing.
Yeah, definitely.
So all in all, what is the goal for the team going into the Colorado Cup? Is it if we fail to win this tournament, does that feel like a failure on the team's part, or are there other goals in mind?
I don't know if we have an explicit goal. Kind of knowing our leadership and knowing our coaches, I think the focus will be on playing our game and being resilient. I think that we want our identity to be attached to resilience. We want it to be attached to how we respond to adversity, not necessarily to whether we're winning or losing. Because, you can be an unresilient team and win games, So I think that we're trying to keep the focus on, I wouldn't be surprised if we try to keep the focus on resilience. Outside of that, I think that we recognize that like getting to know teammates, getting to know players off the field is a huge part of success on the field. And, tournaments are just like a great time to do that, whether it's like team dinners or their hotel room or just between games or warm-ups on the field. You get to know your teammates in different ways. So I think that we want to challenge ourselves to kind of like get to know some people on our team that are newer, kind of give them the flavor of what Sockeye is like, but also meet them where they're at. So, I think those two things, resilience and also team bonding, are two big focus areas for Co-Cup that I'd expect us to go after.
Obviously, this is kind of a strange year. The lack of requirements for tournaments means that, we have a Colorado Cup where there's 4 good teams and a lot of regionals and even below regionals level teams competing, as opposed to the typical kind of like almost national championships field that it tends to have. How are you? I mean, talking to Pony folks and Sockeye folks, it seems to be an emphasis on like, we want to compete, we want to go out, we want to play. How are you personally dealing with like kind of this post-vaccination world as the pandemic starts to recede and to make it possible for teams to go out and go to compete at tournaments again? Does it feel like things are kind of back to normal for you, or are there like still a lot of things that feel weird as we head into the season?
Things most definitely aren't back to normal. I mean, like, maybe like for me on a very individual level, yes, maybe if I like really put myself in a vacuum, but like, like there isn't a women's division at this tournament yet, for example, like, and that's a bummer. I mean, that's like a really important part of Ultimate, and it's not there yet. And I'm excited for the women's division to get back on the field later in the season, but, and then other things like other countries are still going into lockdown. My mom's in Canada. We still have issues seeing each other. So, yeah, definitely not back to normal, but on an individual level, being vaccinated, playing with the team of, I think, entirely or almost entirely fully vaccinated folks that are comfortable with return to play, we're definitely starting to get back into what a normal season feels like. And like I was saying about the competition, I going into this weekend, especially, not too worried about who we're playing. It's just a joy to be playing. And that kind of fits in with the overall focus that I think we found to be successful of focusing on ourselves and not worrying too much about who the opponents are. All
right. Well, Trent, thank you so much. Safe travels tonight on your way to Colorado, and have fun out there, and good luck.
Right on. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Trent Dillon with us here on Deep Look. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Deep Look. Great to have Trent on. I'm glad also that he didn't know that both of us picked Pony, so it was good that we kept that from him. But good to hear about Sockeye's beginning of title defense. And I don't think even before this we had ever thought about these open rosters, like opening up the opportunity for teams to offer kind of developmental opportunities to players during the regular season that we haven't really seen before. I mean, I know when I was in high school, I would have dreamed about playing with my local club team Chain. I did, but I couldn't imagine being invited to like actually go to a tournament with them.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that pays dividends. Having players come to practice, especially in a year where I think there's a backlog of weddings and people want to take more vacation time and feel like, hey, I actually found Frisbee life balance during the pandemic and don't want to completely lose that. Like I think Dylan Freechild's on vacation right now, which is why he's not playing with Sockeye, and good for him. So with that, there's open spots at practices. You need people there to be able to scrimmage and do things. And why not bring out talented players who, you think could be on your roster in future years? I think it's even a better way to develop talent than to just kind of slot them into a B team in the city where maybe they get more reps, but don't get that same high level experience that you get at an elite club practice. I mean, you can really learn a lot in 2 months of club practices. I mean, seriously, if you're a young player out there, high school, college, play club with anybody, because you're going to get so much better playing with players better than you. And I mean, I think that just goes to the next level with a team like Sockeye that's, doing things at a really high level.
And related to that, if we're just advocating for young players, go to tryouts, because you may not get to go to a lot of practices, but even 2 practices, even just getting to know the elite club players, letting them know who you are so that when they see you at a hat tournament or whatever, they come by and say hi. So they recognize your name when you're trying out for the future. Like, go to tryouts because it costs you nothing, and everybody's usually really welcoming. So I highly recommend, if you have elite aspirations one day, go to tryouts even before you're ready and just get the extra experience in. And the way that this season is structured takes off some of the pressure. I think that these cities where they have multiple teams, you go through this, like, your best players are often your leaders could be your leaders on other teams. So like they can't really go through the practice player process. You can't commit to a non-roster spot for a team for a whole season and then also be a part of this other team. So this is like a little more flexible. So maybe you spend half the year, being a practice player with a top level team, and then you still have time and space to make for the other team. So this is a little more flexible in that area, and that's good. Charlie, we had kind of a cold open, so I didn't get to tell you a little bit of my story from Summer League.
Oh, okay.
Which is how great is it to have Summer League
great.
stories?
And my team is 4-0, Keith. I'm loving it.
Oh, very nice, very nice. My team's record is not that sterling, although pretty much every game I've been to, we've gone a double game point. Some we've won, some we've lost. So I'm getting my money's worth, if you know what I mean. But if I can tune my own horn, are we pro tuning our own horn?
We are. That's part of our show.
Okay, I had a really strong Summer League game.
Wow.
Like, came out, first point, like snapped off an inside break across the field, hit a hammer as the hockey assist, and then like a few points later, had a big layout score on an up line. I cooked somebody deep. Like, I had a good game.
Keith. Wow.
But so as much as that sounds nice, somebody came up to me on the sidelines, and a gentleman said, "Hey, do you happen to be great Grandmasters eligible?" Or Grandmasters eligible, not great Game Masters. Do you happen to be Grandmasters eligible?
Oh no. Oh no.
And I said, "I don't think so, but what's the age requirement?"
Does fatherhood
said, no, I'm a few years short.
Grandmaster status. Now that I have a child, am I Grandmaster's eligible?
Yeah, do I just get plus years? Like, however old your kid is, you get those years added on to your status. No, I told him I'm not there yet, but you can put me on the prospect list. And he said, by the time you're ready, I'll be in great Grandmasters. But it was a reality check. It's like, you're moving good for someone who might be 40.
It's like the biggest backhanded compliment. Like, you're good enough that we want you on our team, our Grandmasters team.
Yeah, it was funny, but a good reminder, just a little reality.
Look at
check
you go out laying out there.
I'm shocked because I've been so out of shape, but like maybe it's just the pure adrenaline of like getting back on the field. But I feel like I feel better on the field than I felt in a while.
That's amazing. You just needed the rest. You just needed a year of rest.
Maybe that was it. I don't know. Maybe my like chemical balance or my hormones have changed since the kid came along. I don't know.
Could be. All right. Before we get to our club season way too early national semifinals picks, the Western Ultimate League made some announcements. They're going to have not a season, but they are going to play some games later this year in the 2021 Western Ultimate League Winter Cup. So the first full season for the team will be starting in March of next year, 2022. But this Winter Cup is going to be kind of like a preseason kickoff event. It's going to get all the teams together in one location in Southern California, and they're going to play games over the course of a weekend, kind of like a round robin type event. Still don't have specific dates or specific location, but looks like the plan is to do live streaming, have fans there. And of course, it will be very beautiful, I'm sure, in winter in Southern California, as it always is. Southern California is kind of like the hotbed of Ultimate for the next year, Keith. I mean, we've got a ton of stuff coming up.
Literally.
Nationals, we've got regionals, we've got the Western Ultimate League Winter Cup. Obviously, we have Club Nationals in San Diego. And then we've got Beach Worlds coming up next spring, all down in Los Angeles and Point South. So that's going to be yet another thing happening, and I'm excited to see the WUL teams take the field.
That to me is the biggest thing. Like, let's just get them on the field. Like, I almost don't care what happens. Let's get it on the field and get cameras there and make sure people can watch, because we've had years of gestating hype now. And it's time to just even getting players together. Like, it's going to feel so much more real once we can say these teams played games. And that's as much as I want. And I love that they're thinking forwardly about the following season.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get to capture a bunch of highlights that you can use in promo. You can get photos, you can do press conferences. Like, there's a lot of opportunity to do things with having everybody in one place. And then obviously just being able to watch games. I'm sure that's going to be great fun. And it'll be solidly after the club season. So, players will have had a chance to recover from any club season nicks and cuts and be out there and play some elite semi-pro ultimate.
Getting on the field is in reality probably the easiest part of organizing an entire professional league or semi-professional sports league. Once you get all the players in the same place, this stuff kind of happens naturally. But for fans, it's what's going to make it feel tangible. It's going to feel a lot more real, and that's going to make going into the next season with a fan base, with investment, that's going to make it a lot easier, I think, for fans when there's a real tangible. It's not truly a proof of concept, but it's like, hey, we're playing. These are the entities that are in the league, and let's start building a narrative and a story for ourselves.
So in other news, we got to make our AUDL picks, Keith. So let's line them up. You've got the lines. Lay them out for us, and we'll make our picks. We went 3 for 3 last week. Got the really nice pick to have DC over New York. We've extended our lead over Stall 7. Aren't those guys the expert AUDL podcasts? Like, step up in the picks department, my friends. But we're out in front. Pavlianis is already thinking about how he's going to roast those guys later this year. We've got 3 more games on the board this week. Let's hear them.
All right, so we start in Texas. Austin at Dallas. That's the Friday game. They play twice this weekend slate. So this is the first game, Friday. We're making Dallas minus 3.5, despite the fact that they've taken L's to this Austin team.
They have. I think they were minus 5.5 on the road to start the year, and everybody hammered Dallas, and then Austin outright won the game.
Yikes.
Keith, this is a revenge game in my mind. Dallas is the better team. I don't really know how it's going to play out with the first game. You know, they're playing back-to-back at Dallas. So Friday night, Saturday night, because they had a rain out earlier the year. So I'm not really sure how to account for that. But I think Dallas covers the spread this time. I like the shortened line. I think Austin is a solid team, but I just think Dallas is going to be like, we're going to show you that we are, in fact, the better team. And they're going to prove it by winning comfortably.
And I feel like these two teams have played differently since then. I mean, we have not seen Austin, I think, play as well in any game as they did in beating Dallas early in the year. And I don't think we've seen Dallas play as poorly since then.
For sure.
So with things moving in that direction, I also feel comfortable taking Dallas here. It's kind of make or break. If they go out there and lose this first game, how are they going to get up for the last game? You know, you can't be like, all right, we let the little brother team beat us 3 times. Now we got to stand up for ourselves. Like at that point, you've dogged yourself in.
And you're probably on the outside looking in at a playoff spot. You know, Dallas already has the loss to San Diego in the second game of a back-to-back. So it's kind of a must-win game, to be honest.
Right. This is like in an NBA playoff series when you go down 2-0 on the road and you're going in your home game. You can't lose game 3 at home when you're
hammer the Bucks in game 3, folks.
Yeah, lock. I mean Giannis looked great.
Lock.
I'm taking Dallas here.
Okay, next game.
All right. Let's go to the Central Division. We've got Chicago traveling to Madison, and the Union are minus 2.5 in this rematch.
Madison kept it close with Chicago in Chicago last weekend. For whatever reason, I don't expect that to happen again. It's tough to go on the road and win, but Chicago's way better than Madison. So Keith, my lean is to take Chicago here, despite the fact that Madison just played them well. I actually think that's a bad thing for Madison. I think if they'd gotten blown out, they would have had a better chance to keep it close in this game. So I think I just want to take the Union here and lay the points on the road. What do you think?
We're at the point in the season where it gets hard to check. You got to check your priors. You know, was I too high? Was I too low on this team from the beginning of the year? I think that I'm not too high in Chicago. I think last week's game was maybe the worst they played, and they still won with a nice run in the fourth quarter. I'm starting to wonder if we're ever going to see Joe White play for them. Like, is that going to happen? I don't know. He's not playing this weekend, so yeah. but which is part of the Joe White experience, right? We've known that for a long time. So make that in your considerations if you're putting him in the top 5 of your top 25 players or whatever. But all that said, we've seen Chicago look really good. I still feel like they've been the best team. So I'm here. I'm comfortable with them covering the line. I think that the one worry I have is that Madison kind of turns these games into rock fights, and that keeps the scoring low and that keeps the margins low. Yep. But I think Chicago is fairly comfortable playing that slow game, but I think they've got a little too much offensive explosiveness to get tamped down again. So I'm going to take Chicago.
I think they win like 20-16.
Yeah, that feels maybe right. Maybe even more. I think they might be able to pop off to get a few more goals.
We will see.
Maybe not necessarily a larger margin, but we'll see.
And the final game, maybe the biggest game of the season so far.
We've got a pick'em here. It's that close. DC traveling to Atlanta, so we get the Breeze against the Hustle.
This is a huge game, Keith. There's just no way around it. Atlanta undefeated. DC coming off the win against New York, the first team to beat New York since 2018. DC's looked for real. I guess you could say Atlanta's looked for real. Their zone is good. They have that great win over Raleigh to start the year, game 1. I honestly, Keith, I really feel like Atlanta's a little bit overvalued, a little, if I might say it, a little bit fraudulent. They're a little bit fraudulent. This is a very soft 4-0. They should have lost.
Can you be a little bit fraudulent?
They should have lost to Boston. Now, I know they didn't have John Stubbs, and John Stubbs has been unbelievable. He's been one of the best players in the league so far this year. So I got to give him his credit where it's due. But this Atlanta team is a little fraudulent. Like, if you take away that Raleigh win, and I think they were lucky to play Raleigh in game 1, week 1, they have been good but not great. Whereas DC has, really looked very good. Very good. And yes, their win against New York was against a shorthanded New York team, missing a couple of key players on the O-line. And, if those players are there, it's probably a closer game, and maybe they lose by 1 or 2, like it's kind of been their MO against New York. But at the end of the day, they still got the dub. And I just think the Breeze are a better team. So I am all in on taking the Breeze, pick them here, even though they're on the road against Atlanta. Huge game. Basically, I think it's directly for the lead in the division because they would have the tiebreaker.
This is a tough one, and the reason to me is Stubbs. That Stubbs presence, which we haven't gotten consistently with Atlanta, so we don't really know. Yeah, we it's just a small sample size to judge them with. I think fraudulent's strong. It's hard for me to a little fraudulent is fraudulent's such a strong term for a team. DC though, they've been the second most impressive team, arguably the most impressive team so far. They beat Raleigh by even less than Atlanta did. So, I think I'm also going to take DC here, but man, it feels really close. I don't feel super confident, in part because I feel like John Stubbs could be the best player on the field. And maybe Matt Smith's going to be the best player on the field. And I don't know what we're going to see. I think there's a lot of MVP talk about some of these DC players because their ability to maintain possession of the disc. When you talk about Zach Norbaum and Johnny Malks, I think this is going to be an offensive slanted game, so it should be a lot of fun to watch.
It's going to be a shootout.
I think we're going to see a lot of clean offense and getting blocks. So I'm going to take DC. Think they can generate a couple blocks from the likes of AJ Merriman, come up with a couple of big plays. I'm with you on DC, but pick them as a great line because this one seems really close to me.
I just don't know if I trust Atlanta's defense against this Breeze offense. This Breeze offense probably been the best in the league. Are they due for regression? Perhaps, but they have a sustainable game plan. I mean, they'll go deep, and they're going to have to play against the zone. We haven't seen them have to face a ton of zone, but they've also shown the ability to be very patient. The question really comes down to, for me, can DC's defense get stops and breaks against the Atlanta offensive line? That's the question mark. I mean, I think the answer is yes, but I want to see it proven. This is a huge prove-it game for both of these teams. I mean, it's a massive game. Also, Absolutely. An amazing coaching matchup, as you've got, Miranda Rothnall's coaching the Hustle, and have built this team up for years. And the same is true on DC with Daryl Stanley. It's gonna be a chess match out there. Like, think about how much work has gone in this week to like scouting the zone and Miranda looking at the tape of, when has DC faltered offensively? What are they going to do? Like, will they bring the zone? Will they maybe throw a curveball and not play much zone? I can't wait to watch this one. Like, to me, this is like must-watch TV.
I do think that zone is going to be a key thing. And I think that the makeup of DC makes them not the type of team that's susceptible to the kind of sprung trap turnovers that we see the Hustle get against teams. They throw out that zone, and then all of a sudden Kelvin Williams is sprinting into a block in the backfield, or out of nowhere Brett Holzmeier is intercepting something downfield. Like, that's kind of one of the ways that the Hustle generate turnovers with a lack of maybe tremendous shutdown one-on-one defenders. And this is a DC team whose handler core, I feel like, is not going to be very generous with those opportunities. They're going to be looking for it too. So that's another thing that I think may favor DC.
We watched Boston throw traps against DC, and the Breeze break the trap every time. I think we might get a bigger dose of Rowan this week because of his throwing creativity, able to work in the zone, like put him as a popper or something, let him distribute. It's going to be a really interesting matchup. I'm excited to check it all out. So anyway, those are our picks. We're taking Dallas -2.5 at home against Austin. We're taking Chicago, or -3.5, excuse me. We're taking Chicago -2.5 on the road at Madison, and we are taking the Breeze in a pick'em against the Hustle on the Saturday night game of the week. All right, Keith, it's time to put up or shut up and make our way too early semifinals and beyond picks for the USA Ultimate Club National Championships. So we know what we know, which may not be that much, and we have to go with our gut and what we feel in deep within us for who is going to push through and come away with a title at the end of the year. Are you ready to go?
Absolutely not, but that's not really going to stop you, is it?
It's not. Let's start where we know the least, and that is in the women's division. I think the biggest question mark of all is what the heck is going to happen with the Canadian teams? I don't know. Canadian Ultimate Championships are going to be at the end of September, early October. Well, that's exactly when USAU regionals take place. What's the border situation going to be? My instinct is crossing the border will definitely be on the table. And I think that Ultimate Canada, and I asked them this and they said it, Danny Saunders, the executive director, told me they're going to try to avoid conflicts with regionals. So with those two things in mind, I still think I put, top Canadian teams competing in the USAU series at like 70%. So I'm talking, Sixers, Furious, Traffic, maybe Goat. I don't know about the other teams. It's a strange year all around. But anyway, we have to kind of keep that in mind because obviously Sixers made the final in 2019. Are they even going to be in the championship conversation here in 2021? I don't know.
You say that's the biggest question. That's not my biggest question about the women's division.
Okay.
I want to know, we've talked about the same teams in the women's division for so long, and that group has slowly expanded a little bit and a little bit. And like half of those teams, we have no idea what their roster turnover is going to look like. And to me, that's where the question is. What's Fury going to look like? What's Riot going to look like? What's Molly Brown going to look like? No Scandal in the picture this year. Will some of those players play with Grit, who's been on the come up? These to me are even bigger questions, perhaps, than the presence of Traffic and Sixers as it specifically pertains to the women's division.
Sure. Am I going first?
Oh, you want me to go first? All right. I can snap some off.
I'm ready to go.
All right. So I'm picking semifinals, right?
Yep. Semis, finals, and champion.
All right. I feel like you could pick my first pick because it's you gotta take the most obvious thing on the board, right? Boston Brute Squad. It's just
they're going to be there.
What else are you going to say?
They're going to be there.
Yeah, they're going to be there. They're going to be there. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to take Fury.
Yep.
Just the consistency is just so proven.
Too much talent in the Bay.
Yeah. even if they lose some of their key veterans, they just have so many great players. Yep. I'm not worried about it. So I'm gonna take Fury. Now we start to get a little bit messy. I'm gonna take Sixers again.
Okay.
Again, another super young, talented team. So they, I think, have some room to lose a couple of older players or players who can't travel because they have some player flexibility. Plus, we know they're going to be able to compete going into the year when, who knows how many competitive opportunities there may be for the women's division for the U.S. teams. And then in my last spot, this feels like something I'm going to regret, but I'm going to take a team that I feel like has a lot of infrastructure and feels like they're moving at the right pace. And I'm going to take Phoenix.
Yeah.
They're another team with a lot of depth, but that I expect to see. They're one of the teams I feel like you can count on to have a lot of continuity. And that's not something that we can find in a lot of places. And they've been on the right trajectory.
They're on the come up.
Although maybe last year was a little bit of a rough ending for them. So I'm going to take Phoenix here.
I mean, I was wondering how close our picks were going to be. At the end of the day, I'm not going to not take Brute and Fury. I'm just not. We're talking about team. I don't care when they start playing. It could be sectionals. If they don't play till sectionals, they're still going to be amazing teams, and they're going to have practiced, and they're going to have. Maybe they won't be as good as they were in 2019, but I think they're still plenty good to get to the semifinals. I too am going to take Phoenix to make semis. I think this with Scandal gone.
Oh, we're definitely going to be wrong now.
Uncertainty about Sixers and whether or not they're going to be there or not. Like, Phoenix is the next team up in my mind, and I'm going to stay away from Riot. They missed in 19. A lot of questions about, like, I know there's players leaving to play in mixed, and big question marks for me about what that team's going to look like. So I'm going to just drive down the I-5. I'm going to drive down the I-5, and I'm going to go to Portland, and I'm going to take.
This was the other team I was thinking about. Logically,
they were so close. Excuse me. They made the semifinals in 2019. I forget. They beat Molly Brown. What a game. And I think they're going to make it back. I think this team is, like, for real. Mariel Hammond and company, they just came out with a roster. I haven't really had a chance to digest it yet. But I expect them to be good. They're like a little bit further along than some of the other teams. They have the roster laid out there. I think we're going to play at pro championships. I think that this Schwa team is going to be galvanized by the fact that they went to semis in 2019, and that is going to help them, keep people around, keep the motivation high. Like, hey, this is our year. Like, if there's ever a year to go chase a ring and feel like you're not just in the shadow of Boston and San Francisco and Seattle every single year, well, bam, like, here it is. Those teams are chilling right now. So that's my picks right there. It's Brute, Fury, Phoenix, Schwa. Finalists? Boy, that's where it gets interesting. Oh, look. Sorry. I'm taking Brute and Fury. Sorry.
Understandable. I'm taking. Do I believe in Sixers? I mean, it's just like, I know I'm taking on risk with Sixers. Like, it's built in. Yeah, I got to take Brute and Fury too.
Wow.
I want to take Brute and Sixers, but I got to take Brute and Fury.
That's fair. It's fair. I understand it. I'm going to take Brute Squad to repeat and win another national championship.
Charlie, I'm taking the same thing, and I'll go a step further. I think Brute might mash on people this year.
Really?
Yeah, I think that Brute's probably going to benefit, although maybe it'll be down in New York where they benefit from from Scandal not participating, but they could pick up some extra players here, and just this is a team that seems like they've had it together from ahead of other teams, and they were not that far off from beating most teams pretty handily last year, with the exception of Fury. So. They had some stumbles in the regular season. I said last year, but I meant in 2019. They had some stumbles in the regular season, but like, I think they're going to expand the gap this year with other teams struggling to kind of get all their ducks in a row.
And there's still some buzz about some New York players going up to Boston, playing with Brute. Ben's going to be better this year. Ben's going to be better. I don't think I put them in the semis conversation, but Ina Cartagena, some buzz about some other players coming through. Like, I think that team's going to nationals. And, you know, but at the end of the day, if you're a great player and you know you want to go try to get a ring, you go to play for Brute Squad. And that's what happens. The great teams end up drawing in those players who are maybe a little dissatisfied with not winning. And we've seen it time and again across the divisions. So our picks are locked in. Let's move over to the mixed division. And Keith, I'll let you pick first this time. Oh, wait, no. You picked first before.
Yeah,
Sorry.
wait. Don't do me like that.
My turn. Here's my 4 semifinals picks. Number 1, give me Amp. I think they're back. They're not going to be quite the same team, perhaps. I mean, they're going to lose Anna Thompson. So that alone, maybe they won't be as good, but I still think they're a semis team. Give me Mixtape. They're reloading. They're picking up a couple of players from, like Sockeye, and, Khalif is still playing with them. Brad Hauser is back. I really like Mixtape's chances to go and try to win a championship this year. So there's 2. Do I stick with Dragon? Yes, I do. I stick with Dragon, and I'm going to take Space Heater for my 4th spot in the semifinals. I think Space Heater, with Scandal gone this year and a lot of defections from Truck Stop, that is all basically flowing directly to Space Heater, and that's going to mean they're going to be really good this year. So there's my semis picks. Keith?
All right. I'm not gonna lie to you. We're pretty similar here. I'm also going to take Amp. Think there's going to be a semifinals talented team. I'm going to take Space Heater. I think that they could be the number 1 team. Like, we'll see what the roster actually shakes out like, but I think they could be the number 1 team. I'm going to take Mixtape, also buying the hype. And then I'm going to take Mischief.
Yes.
I think that if we're going to see...
What was I think?
If we're going to see a down year in the Bay, in the women's division, and maybe even the men's division, I think you're going to see the mixed division benefit. So I'm going to go with Mischief.
And
for all I know,
gone.
it could... Yeah, no Blackbird. For all I know, some of those people could end up picking up with Lotus. They could play with Polar Bears. They could form a new team. I don't know. But I feel like the safe money's with Mischief here. So I'm going to go with Mischief as my 4th team. I am still, if you wanted me to pick like an outside shot team to be your shame this year, I don't know why it can't be Toro. I'm just saying.
You're way overhyping if they got all of the best North Carolina players on their team and they had a roster that looks like the one that showed up on Sunday at Richmond Cup, I agree with you, but that's not what I'm just saying. Situation.
When's the last time Mix just went to seed, man?
I understand, but I still think we have like the halves. I think there's going to be some big surprises this year. I think there's probably a team we don't even like really know about yet that's going to be really
maybe
good.
A team that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, and like by the way, no Snake Country this year. So slow Boston Slow, formerly Slow White. They pick up Peter Pryle, for example, and we have a new team out of the area with a lot of the young players like Tanner Johnson. So what's that going to look like? I still think there's just a little too much splintering going on in Boston for any of those teams to feel like they really rise up to the top and like semifinals quality. I think that, I'm going to regret not taking Mischief. I just don't know. There's so many question marks about Bay Area Ultimate right now. Like, things are so slow right there in the city that a lot's going to depend on like where do players land. If Mischief gets like 5 or 6 Fury women, then yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be super tough. Like, they could win a title. But is that what's going to happen? Don't know. Literally don't know. I don't even know if the teams know. So on to our finals picks. Gimme Mixtape and Space Heater. And I'm going to take...
Go ahead.
I'm going to take... I think Space Heater does it this year. They almost did it before. I think they're going to do it this year.
Understandable. Bobble away, you know. All right. I'm going to go with Mixtape and Mischief, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mixtape and Mischief. And I'm taking Mixtape to return to the top of the mountain, to the top of the heap.
I would not be surprised.
I think they're going to get influx of talent. I think they're going to be super motivated. I'm going with Mixtape to win this thing.
I would not be surprised. Okay, let's go over to the men's division. Keith, your picks.
Oh yeah. It's tough out here. It's tough out here.
Is it?
All right, I'm gonna go with
teams.
Really?
Personally,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the two that I think are definitely obvious, which is Sockeye and Pony.
Okay.
I feel like we talked a bit about the talent level of these teams. So I think I'm going to take those two at the top. Then I think I'm going to go Ring. This is a team that their core is going to be around, and you know that, and their core is developing together.
And I thought they were going to lose Jack Williams, but not so.
Right. So
back.
Keeping Jack Williams is huge for them.
And there's big buzz about Ryan Osgar and John Nethercutt return.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Osgar. Oh,
Jack
snap.
Williams and Ryan Osgar have been like playing the field a little bit out in the club landscape. Now,
what's our Ryan Osgar
that with
doing?
100% certainty, but that's the talk of the town.
Who is his agent? Like, what is he represented by Clutch? Like, what's going on here? This is ridiculous. And then the fourth spot, I guess I gotta put Machine there. I'm really tempted.
Who do you want to take?
Yeah, I kind of like Rhino.
Rhino, yes, I love it.
I kind of like Rhino as the sleeper.
Trent was hyping
but I think
him up.
I feel like a fool to not put Machine in there. Maybe you're right. Maybe this was a little more obvious than I realized now that I'm actually saying them out loud.
The Rhino upset is very possible. It is very possible.
They're definitely my like knocking on the door team.
Definitely.
They're my like, but I think I got to take the security here with the other four.
Yeah, and like then you what's Revolver going to look like? I'm skeptical
What's Truck
how the Bay is going to shake out. Truck's going to be down, I think. Truck's losing a ton of players this year. Rowan's not planning to play club. Spiva's gone. A bunch of guys gone. Check out our club.
Is Jay Frood really on?
Jay Frood's playing for Bravo.
I mean, that's a nice get.
It's a nice get. I mean, Bravo's going to be solid, but I don't think I can put them in the semis mix. Not quite.
I don't think so either. But if we're talking like potential upset teams that could surprise us.
I think Bravo and Rhino and Revolver, and I don't know who the 8th team is, but those are quarters teams. But I think they lose to the 4 teams you named. I'm taking the same teams. Like, look, these are just the best rosters. It's like not really all that close. So I'm taking Pony, Sockeye, Machine, and Ring. Which is the 4.
Well, so the next part of this conversation should get pretty interesting then.
Yes, of course. Now we get to the good stuff of who's going to make the final, who's going to win it. But without having seen anything yet this club season, those are my picks. You've got 3 teams. So interesting though, like Sockeye and Pony playing full club seasons, Machine sort of doing like a quasi, but mostly focusing on the AUDL, and then Ring is like not even going to play until sectionals. So how is that all going to shake out? Well, I guess we decide right here with our finalist picks. Go ahead, Keith.
What do you want to do? You want to split the difference here? I don't know. We should have done that from the beginning. We should have been like, I'll pick one, you pick one.
But I want to make my own picks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. No. Like we don't have to pick different ones. Just like reveal your picks one at a time. All right. I'm going to go with Sockeye making it back to the finals.
Okay.
And I'm going to have them against Ring.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going with that. And let's do it. Burning Ring of Fire finally does it. They needed a weird year to make it happen, but they're going to make it happen.
Are
and
you
then we can all spend all our time hitting with asterisk.
The sketchy play of the Raleigh Flyers?
I guess I should be if I'm going to be like, oh, I think that the Union's play is like informing how we should think about Machine. But no, I'm not necessarily. I'm not really too concerned about it.
I really want to pick Ring. So much depends on the roster and like how much.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I already accepting that if the rosters are different than like kind of where I'm already thinking of the teams, then I'm not going to get it right. But so be it.
First of all, I'm taking Machine to the final. I'm definitely doing that.
I knew you would.
It's really hard to pick from these other three teams. It really is very difficult. I think I worry about the hangover effect for Sockeye. They're good. They're really good. But it's hard to win twice. Pony was really good in 2019. Before the season, it was like, wow, Pony. And then they never played that good. So, I'm concerned about the back end of Pony's roster. This is a problem that I have with taking Pony because I think the top end is great, as good as anybody. But I'm not like they're D2. Yikes. So give me Machine versus. I'm going to take Sockeye. I have to take Sockeye. The talent is too good. But I'll go ahead and make my pick right now, and maybe I've been telegraphing it. I'm taking Machine to win the championship this year. I don't think Sockeye is going to be the team that wins back-to-back. It's just too hard. Machine, so hungry. Their roster's looking so good. I think that they came so close in 2019. Same way that Sockeye came close, very, very close in 2018. I know they lost in semis, but had they won that game, I think they definitely beat Revolver in the final. So yeah, I've got Machine over Sockeye in this year's championship.
Remind me what was the score of that Ring of Fire semifinal last year?
Well, it was a 1-point win, wasn't it? It was double game point.
So, talking about so close, Ring of Fire. Really close last year.
True.
I'm just saying.
Listen,
I
agree.
We're because of their legacy as a semifinalist, we will think of it as just another semifinals game. But like, and if just a blown switch potentially away.
Think about if they get Ryan Osgar and Nethercutt, and Nethercutt's going to have to play a lot better to see the field.
Yeah.
Okay, because he was terrible for Bravo last year, but maybe the fit was wrong. But definitely, like, Osgar is going to play on the O-line. He's been one of the best players in the AUDL. He was one of the best players at 2019 Club Nationals. He's been one of the best players in the country for, like, years. Now he's in the big markets. If they get him and he slots into the O, I think that maybe is enough to push Ring over the edge. Like, if Osgar's taking the shots on the unders instead of Cyril's bows, it's a better situation, I think.
And I'm willing to take the 50-50 shot that they get Osgar. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's worth it, and that's part of why I backed Raleigh here.
And so you're taking them to win the ship?
Yeah.
Wow. So 2 teams that haven't won a championship in ever? Machine's been to the final. Or they went to semis a few years back, and then obviously in 2019. Ring's been in the semis for years and years, but hasn't made it to the final. Maybe ever.
Hey, we got Bucks and Suns going up against each other.
I love it. It would be I would love to see it. So there's our picks. Let us know what you think at DeepLookPod on Twitter, deeplook@ultiworld.com. I feel like the fact that we're picking like legacy teams to do well feels like it should be wrong in this weird post-pandemic year, but at the same time, it's really hard to deviate from what we've seen play out over years and years. and where we expect players to land. So
when you have this uncertainty, you go to what you know, right? We go to the safe harbors. And I think to some degree, players are going to do that. That's where the buy-in's going to be. When you already know what you're going to get, elite competition, strong leadership, getting to play with good players, a chance to contend for a title, like that's attractive to players and that creates buy-in. So I think that those teams, in the same way that I've been saying that I'm afraid is going to happen in college, like I think that those teams are going to have an advantage in the club ranks. And that's, maybe it's just us as commentators going to, the punditry of the safe teams. How dumb can we look if like Brute Squad loses in semis? Like you're picking Brute Squad, who's going to argue against that? So maybe that's what's happening subconsciously, but it just feels like when we know so little, you got to go to the places where you feel like you know the most.
All right, well, tell us where we're right, where we're wrong. At Deep Look Pod on Twitter, deeplook@ultiworld.com.
I'm pretty sure that's going to be about Chua. That's what people are going to say.
in the Discord.
You're wrong if you're not picking Chua.
And we appreciate you joining us today, and we hope that you will, if you're not already a subscriber, you'll consider subscribing so that you can listen to all of our podcast bonus episodes, including today's Deep Look bonus segment where we talk about some player hypotheticals. Keith's got a list of various players, who's going to win, who's most likely to win Pody in the next 5 years. Who would you build your team around? So we've got some good ones. Join us over there. You can become a subscriber for less than $4 a month at ultiworld.com/subscribe. All right, enjoy the weekend. Club Ultimate is back, and we'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look.